Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today we are diving into a massive global phenomenon. How exactly did a small startup project evolve into the operating system that literally powers the digital lives of billions? We're talking, of course, about Android. We're going to break down its fascinating history from version 1 all the way to 17, explore its huge hardware ecosystem, and really dig into why people just keep buying it. To kick things off, we really have to ask a massive question. How on earth did Android capture over 3 billion monthly active users? Seriously, just think about that scale for a second. There is very likely an Android device within arm's reach of you right now. Half the computing devices sold today run this software. But how did it manage to dominate the global mobile market so completely? Especially with heavy hitters like Apple out there. Well, here's our roadmap for today. First, the open source foundation. Second, a history of rapid evolution. Third, the global hardware ecosystem. Fourth, Android's market dominance. And fifth, why consumers choose Android. Okay, section 1, the open source foundation. Let's start right at the bedrock to figure out what Android actually is under the hood. At its core, the system is known as the Android Open Source Project, or ASOP. And this is absolutely crucial. It is completely free open source software. This was essentially a masterstroke by Google. It gave manufacturers the ultimate cheat code: free, flexible software to build their own custom experiences, which completely wiped out the barrier to entry for literally any company wanting to make a smartphone. And here's another key piece. Android doesn't just start from scratch. It is built securely right on top of the Linux kernel. That means it relies on a super robust, constantly researched foundation that's already used in millions of security-sensitive environments worldwide. Right, moving on to section 2, a history of rapid evolution. With that flexible Linux-based foundation in place, the speed of this platform's evolution has been just staggering. It all kicked off with version 1.0 back in late 2008. By 2009, version 1.5 hit, famously starting that whole decade of dessert-themed names with Cupcake, bringing us things we totally take for granted now, like the on-screen keyboard. Fast forward through a whole bakery of updates, and we land at Android 15, Vanilla Ice Cream, in 2024. But they aren't slowing down. Android 16 arrives in June 2025, and development is already well underway, looking toward the Android 17 horizon in 2026. Next up, Section 3, the global hardware ecosystem. All that rapid software evolution perfectly set the stage for an absolute explosion in hardware. Unlike closed systems where one company makes both the software and the phone, Android relies on a massive, diverse ecosystem of manufacturers. You definitely know these names. We're talking about giants like Samsung, Google, OnePlus, Xiaomi, Vivo, and Oppo. Because it's open source, Android can run on literally anything from a $100 budget phone to a $2,000 folding marvel. You know, historically, Android's caught some flack for having short lifespans, but the industry has massively shifted. Google and Samsung are now committing to a whopping 7 years of OS and security updates for their flagship phones. OnePlus and Xiaomi are offering a very solid 4 years for theirs. This is a real game changer. It means your phone is now a long-term investment that holds its value and security for the better part of a decade. All right, Section 4, Android's market dominance. So, how does this mix of open software and crazy hardware diversity actually translate to global adoption? The answer is absolute dominance. In 2024, Android locked down a towering 69.88% of the global mobile OS market share. So yeah, nearly 7 out of every 10 smartphones globally run Android. But that global average kind of hides some really fascinating local realities. Take a look at India, an absolutely staggering 95.21% Android adoption, heavily driven by affordable hardware. Africa follows a really similar trend at 87%. But then you look at the United States and it completely flips the script, leaning heavily toward iOS at roughly 59%, while Europe just sort of sits comfortably in the middle at 66%. Which brings us to Section 5, why consumers choose Android. We know the data, but why exactly do surveyed consumers choose to buy Android? Well, a demographic study gives us some answers. A dominant 40% of users actually cite price as their main reason. This perfectly tracks with what we talked about earlier regarding hardware diversity. Android just offers more affordable entry points. But get this, in second place at 27%, it's TV and social media advertising. Having all those different manufacturers means there's a massive collective marketing engine constantly pushing the platform everywhere.
And when it's actually time to pull out the wallet, Samsung clearly dominates, capturing 47% of respondents in the study. They're followed by strong showings from Huawei, Nokia, and Xiaomi. It just goes to show that even in a totally open and flexible ecosystem, people still heavily gravitate toward established, trusted hardware brands.
Synthesizing all this, a really clear picture of the core buyer emerges. Working millennials under 30 with middle-class incomes. They're pragmatic, they value reasonable prices, and they are heavily influenced by that TV and social media marketing. But most importantly, they generate a massive 53% positive recommendation rate, meaning they're out there actively telling friends and family to make the switch. Okay, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with something to chew on. We've seen how Android's open source, Linux-based foundation let it scale across dozens of hardware partners, capturing billions of users primarily through affordability and sheer variety. But as computing pushes further into wearables, smart cars, and AI, will an open ecosystem like Android's continue to rule the globe, or will tightly controlled closed systems end up winning the next decade of our digital lives? Thanks for hanging out with me for this deep dive.